and welcome to a brand new episode of the Attraction.gg podcast, where we talk racing games, esports, and sim racing. And today, it's a very special episode because joining us is not one, but two guests from EA and Codemasters. Joining us is Chris Smith, the creative director of Grid Legends, and also Stephen Brand, associate creative director of Grid Legends. Hello.
Hey, thank you for having us today. It's great to be here.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having us.
Well, it's our pleasure, and thanks again for your time. So we'll talk about Grid Legends because it was announced earlier this year, around just after E3 time, during an EA event. But now we've seen a lot more details about the game. We've even been lucky enough to have a quick go as well. So first of all, though, before we jump into the finer details, Chris, if you could just provide us with the elevator pitch. For those who don't know, in a nutshell, what's Grid Legends?
So for me, Grid Legends is attitude. Think X Games of motorsport meets Drive to Survive. It's about the thrill of driving, wheel to wheel and pack racing against friends, enemies, on and offline, in as many types of vehicles as we can get you into. It's about moments created in that heat of the race. It's about those moments where a car flies up into the air and you drive underneath it with your friends. Grid is also about motorsport turned up to 11. And it's for all player types. Earlier before this, we were talking about racing games being for all players, from more casual players to sim players. Grid Legends is for everyone. And we build it around three primary pillars. The first pillar being to tell a premium cinematic story. The secondly, to build a game with choice and variety. And we intend to do this via content, game modes, and features like the race creator. And lastly, to create a social game that blurs that line between single and multiplayer, because the experience is always fun, always unpredictable.
That sounds very interesting and exciting. It sounds like, it's the theme, and based on my quick playtest, is fun and action-packed close races. But yes. I suppose we'll touch on that a bit more in a bit. So that's sort of what Grid Legends is. But to me, there's also a lineage there and a series of grid games. So I don't know if, Stephen, if you could talk about or touch upon, where the series has been and how it's got to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of Grid's strengths has always been the on-track experience, right? So if you go back to the early days of TOCA Race Driver, for me, it was like the king of on-track racing games because I knew I could just pick the game up. If I had a half an hour spare or whatever it may be, I could pick the game up, play it, have a really, really good competitive race with AI. And if I wanted to, there was some depth there if I wanted to go in and obviously look at tweaking my cars, upgrading them, that type of thing. So what we've done with Grid Legends is kind of return to that sort of core. What makes a grid game special? What's its special sauce? What are its strengths? So we spent a lot of time focusing on that on-track experience. And I think you'll notice, obviously, like you say, you're lucky enough to have your hands on the build now that we've shared. And you'll see that when you're racing in Grid, you'll notice the AI will have a hell of a lot of personality about it. You'll notice the AI make mistakes. We wanted the AI to feel as real as possible. And something we've done as well is look at the personality of the AI across the different racing categories. So I myself, massive, TOCA touring car fan, I'm really, really happy that we've brought back, the classic Taurus. We've got the Laguna in there. We've got the Audi A4, some classic cars. My favourite is obviously the big fat Volvo 850. But if you're racing in a such a classic car. If you're racing in the touring car race around brands, you'll notice that the AI will probably try and take gaps that they definitely wouldn't if you're in an open wheel race, for instance. So that's kind of the essence of where we're going to with this game. We really want players to feel that immersive experience on track, and where it's not all about coming first and winning. It's about that really experiencing that racing experience on track. So in terms of where that comes in its lineage, what we're doing with Grid Legends, obviously putting that experience together with obviously the story as well. That's a major part of the game. So it's kind of time to tie the both together. The way the story is positioned in the game isn't tied to the career. It's actually the previous season, but you'll notice as you play it, as Chris said, it's the sort of Drive to Survive style Netflix presentation of that. But But again, the key strength as ever with any grid game is that on-track experience. And I think that's where it really shines.
Yeah, because you got to remember, story campaign was previously a staple of Race Driver and grid games. So it's that element. And as Steve said, really making sure that on-track action racing is really on point.
Yes, speaking of the previous games, we actually had a little video series on Traction playing through TOCA Race Driver 3 recently, which has this, you can do, I think it's the World Tour mode where it's got the story involved. Mm-hmm. And so in Grid Legends, there is a in-depth career with 200 odd races, I believe, where you're the team and you're going through a progression. But then there's also Driven to Glory, which is this story-driven linear experience, right? So if we could just touch upon, first of all, Driven to Glory, if that's okay. As a grid, as someone who's played all the TOCA and Race Driver and grid games in the past, starting from 13 years ago, there was Nathan McCain in Race Driver Grid as a rival that you raced against, but he didn't say anything. Now that's a character in real life who talks and does stuff. So if you could just talk to me about the process or the decision behind that, making that, and then also, what's it been like to create that story mode?
Right, yes. So as you said, we've got the career, we've got a race creator, and then we've got this story. So we thought long and hard, not just should we tell a story, but what story should be told. And I'm not going to go into big detail today because we don't want all the spoilers out there. But what we wanted to do was really hark back to that lineage. You've talked about it before, and Steve's gone through it, how there is a lot of grid games that precede this and a lot of fan favorites and a lot of fan memories. And Nathan McCain, Raven West, and they've never really had their moment in the spotlight. And that was really Ollie Johnston, one of our dialogue writers at Codemasters. That was the seed when we said, why don't we give Raven West their moment in the spotlight? But we didn't want to force the player into that team. We wanted to make sure that you experienced Raven West for all they are, which is the bad guys you love to hate. But then we always want to run that balance between not having that sort of cartoon villain bad guy and having people who have reasons for the way they act. They're protecting their name, they're protecting their family. Nathan McCain's grown up a rich kid, so who has had cars all his life and has expected everything in his life, and he will go through a change. So once we knew that, once we knew the story we wanted to tell, we wanted to put another layer on there, which is the human layer. That's where Seneca comes in. Your team, the people that surround you, Yume, Ado, those are the sort of the family that surround you on this journey. And as a family, you go through low times, high times. There's unexpected events that happen to you. And all of those will be present. I'm trying to say it in a really neutral way that doesn't. So,
we don't want any spoilers.
So once you've gone through that, once we got all that, we realized, great, how are we going to show this story? And that's when we realized everyone's watching Drive to Survive. My sister, never been into F1. I finally got her into F1 by watching Drive to Survive. The great thing about Drive to Survive is it's the best of that year's driving, right? It's the moments. And what really brings people in is not just the driving, not just those moments, but the relationships between the characters and not the characters, in this case, real life people and the teams. And that's what we wanted to emulate. And then, of course, the last part of this was how do we bring it to life? And we did do some tests with, typical animation, high-end animation. And what we realized was some of the emotion we want to get across in this, some of the human elements we want to get across in the story, the only way to do that was with real actors. And then, of course, you've got shows like The Mandalorian that shown that sort of green screen, which feels a little dated now and feels a little sort of, it was great at the time, but not quite cutting edge. Mandalorian show. Yeah. Mandalorian created these spaces that you believe, and I can never work out what is and what isn't CG in that. So we had a company, Spav, which they pitched us using this new technology. And essentially that's what we ended up doing. We ended up casting we ended up with an amazing diverse cast. Every one of them was amazing, but obviously we got Shuti Gatwa as well as one of the Volts drivers, who you may have seen in Netflix, Sex Education. We got the virtual stage together. We did a lot of, because we're doing remote, there's a lot of online calls, a lot of meetings in virtual environments, so that when we were ready to go, we spent the shortest time in the studio shooting it to be safe for everyone. And that was our biggest concern. And of course, we did all of the real-world masks, had tests and everything else you'd expect. But then the end result of all this is, well, you've seen it in some of the footage that you've been able to see, specifically the garage that you get to walk, that one of the characters walks through, where nothing is there, but you could be sure that there's stairs and cars and everything else.
Right. Yeah.
So we're just, sorry, I apologize, but just to round that out, you know, the shooting was about 3 months. It was so much fun. And you've seen the result is something that I think really stands up with this modern technology and is really engaging.
So if someone was to purchase Grid Legends in February, is that the first mode or a part of the game you'd like them to play through? Is that fair to say?
Yes, we do lead you in the first initial experience. You play the opening sequence of events, and then we give the player the choice. You know, you can just continue and play the story all the way through, and straight away through. Like, please take a break and don't spend too long on video games, everyone. But if you want to, play through it. But if you want to, after the first couple of races, you can come out of that, create your own team, go into the career, create some races, hop into races online. So, but yeah, we would love it if people played through the career. It's as you said, it's linear. We did that was specific because we wanted the player to go through that experience. So we would love if they played through that, because what it will give you is not just an amazing fun experience, not just the highlights of the game that we love, but also that grounding in what the Grid World Series is. What is the gauntlet? What are the other races? Because these races, they're not just in the story, they also compete next season. So you're going to see all these races in your career in the other places. So it's a great way for everyone to get into the game in a really fun way.
I see. So Driven to Glory is like hit the highlights or the highs and lows of last season, and yes. The career mode is you're creating your own legacy and your own story for.
Yeah, the career mode, which Steve can run you through, is you own the team and you drive every race. The story is that story campaign is just the moments that mattered last season and why they were so pivotal, why people did what they did, what happened, how did it roll out towards the end. So we like to think all thriller, no filler for the story.
As action packed as the on-track racing, right? Oh, that's
yes,
the
yes.
So let's just dive in on the career then, if that's okay. There seems to be a lot more depth than the previous Grid's career, which was in 2019, in my opinion, from on paper at least. And there seems to be a lot of progression systems going on with the teams and the car upgrades. So if you could touch upon that, why was that decided upon, and do you think that will give more depth to the career mode?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things we were looking at with this game is one of our key pillars was variety. So, and one area we can do that obviously is the career. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, is it?
As a design team, we're still playing through it, finishing it now. There's work to do with that, but it's great. It gives us the flexibility really to really sort of showcase and curate what we feel is the optimum Grid experience. And again, we'll probably talk in a little bit maybe about the race creator, but if you think of this side of the game as our curated experience, and as you said, there's a few different elements that are in there now. So one of the key things we're looking at with this is not all cars are going to be purchasable. You'll be being awarded cars through progression, and we thought that was something that just made it feel a lot more accessible, and there's no better reward than a car, right, for doing an event. So
of course,
so that was a really cool way to sort of set that up. So some of the events when you go in to start with will be invitational. We have the Clio Cup, for instance, as a rookie event, which is again really cool little cars racing out. But you'll get one of those given to you to race. When you win that event, that car will then be yours, and you can then take that car, and the more you drive it, the more miles you'll actually clock up as you're driving that car, and that's where that opens up the upgrade tiers. Right. So basically, if you think about mileage as XP for your car, you'll get to a certain level where you can then go into that upgrade tier, and actually spend the cash that you're making through these races on various different upgrades for the car, the braking system to make it faster, power, all that sort of stuff. And so what we've done with that as well, to sort of tie that into the career, is we are creating upgrade challenges. So essentially, at each difficulty tier, be that rookie, semi-pro, or pro, there'll be some races where the AI are pretty much in, the top end versions of that car. So go back to the Clio, for instance. So I mean, and you'll unlock that probably at tier 2 of the upgrade. So by using that car, this event will become available. And if you're feeling brave, you can jump in and give it a go, right? And obviously the best racers out there may win that race, but ideally, you'll want your car to be as upgraded as it can be, and so you can be competitive with those. So that's a sort of little flavour of something different we're doing there as well. And without sort of too many story spoilers again, obviously this is the next year, if you like, so there'll be some characters in there with you that you may recognise from the previous season. So when you can go in, and as you said, you'll have your mechanic with you and your teammate. And again, in a similar way to your car, you can go in and give those extra skills as well. So you might want to make your teammate better in the wet, for instance, or more responsive to your commands. And by gaining XP through Racecraft, Racecraft is back. That's where you'll be able to then go into those upgrade tiers on your team, if you like, and then start upgrading those characters as well. So the core career itself, we didn't want to overcomplicate it. That was one of the things we didn't want to do. There's no point doing that in a game like Grid. You just want to get in there and see the variety in race. So there are paths you can take. You can open up different events by winning a specific event. So there is choice in there for the player. And as with the previous season, it will all sort of culminate in the gauntlet at the end as well, which is like the race of races, right? So, but it's huge. It's a huge career mode. There's over like 250 events in there at the moment, and those events again will be built upon with DLC, and we're doing weekly, monthly events as well that will be available post launch, so players will be able to jump into those. So it's huge, and there's a lot of variety in there.
Yeah, and just to add on top of that, Steve's done a great explanation on all that, and the thinking behind it was in 2019 we felt there was a lack of progression, of allowing the player to grow. And as Steve said throughout the career, as you go through these events, and you don't have to play them all, by the way. So again, choice is there. If you're not good at drift, you don't have to do drift. You can do another event. So, it's accessible, so all player types can get through. But you also go up through the ranks, through rookie, semi-pro to pro, and the upgrades are relevant to those levels as well. So there's a sense of you're moving forwards. There's a sense of your team is getting bigger, it's getting better, as Steve's mentioned with the upgrades. So that was really important to us, both those two factors, which is that there's real progression with real rewards, as Steve has explained. And also, as we've both mentioned, choice. We don't want anyone stuck anywhere in their career and not being able to move forwards. So we'll always come back to that, which is choice and progression as far as the career goes.
Right. Yeah, so it sounds like it's not just completing the race events, it's not just reaching the gauntlet, it's not just unlocking cars, it's also building, improving your team and upgrading the vehicles as well. So there's much more incentive to keep playing by the sound of things, which is great.
Yeah, and every car has an upgrade tree, so it's not
everyone.
Single. Every single vehicle has its own upgrade tree.
Yeah,
nice.
And I guess something I didn't touch on, but I'll touch on quickly because it's relevant as well, is the player can take a sponsor on. So when you're building your team, we've got different sponsors, and those sponsors will have various different objectives as well that you'll pass, through the progression to your career. And what we've done with those as well is actually hook in specific sponsor events as well into the career structure. So you'll open those up by doing specific goals, and at the end of those events, you'll be rewarded with a pretty cool car. And there's obviously achievements attached around those as well. So it's certainly a deeper experience than we had in the last one for sure. And it's something we knew we wanted to build upon.
And also talking about legacy, Steve, giving cars away rather than having players grind for large amounts of money to get cars was really important to us this time. Like going back to what Grid has done in the past, that's been so well received by the public. And that's worth mentioning as well, that we tried to remove frustration and grind from the game.
Yeah, for sure.
I think one thing that you keep referring back to is sort of this choice and variety and accessibility. And is that where the race creation element came from? I believe you can create your own events and mix and match all sorts of conditions and tracks and cars. Again, is it just giving the player more choice?
So it was two things actually. We were talking about career. I remember this conversation with Steve earlier in the production. We were talking about what kind of races we want to put in a career, and then we realized we have the potential to make so many more than we can put in a career. And a lot were like, well, would people like this? Would people like ramps and trucks and minis and Beetles and all this? Like, we're like, well, why don't we just let them choose? It's their game.
I see.
Like, they've paid good money. They've got all the cars and the tracks and the weather conditions and the ramps and the boost gates and the rules for races. Why not just simply have an ability to go, I'll have that, go. But the one thing we didn't want to do is create a race editor, because we've all been in games where, let's be honest, there's a skill to creating race courses. And a lot of people have it, but also a lot of people try and maybe their solutions aren't what they want them to be. And it gets frustrating for players. So this way, everyone gets to create. And if you jump into a race, you're never disappointed because it's always combinations that we know will work. We're still arguing over how many combinations there actually are.
You need that number for the strapline, right?
Yeah, I know.
Over 6 billion combinations.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the rules auto adjust. So from left to right, as you're choosing, once you make a selection, there are some things that aren't compatible, of course. You can't have an elimination last 22 lap course, because rules conflict with each other. So we had to make some choices for you. There are some things that don't combine, but very rarely do we not allow this, usually for technical reasons, not because we don't want that person to have an experience. So, yeah. I think, sorry, Steve.
Yeah, I was just going to say with the race create, I mean, probably one of the best sort of plaudits I can give it is as soon as we got it in the game, it became a tool for us as designers. When we put in the career together, we're like, okay, so, we're thinking about maybe the GT1 class at this point. Which track are they going to work on? And this is really important as well, because what we've done is match the car types and the race types, to the environments we've got, to get the best experience out of that. And the race creator allowed us to do that, right? And it's been such an important tool for us, and it's just one of those tools that why wouldn't we open it up for people to play with it? It's great. It's a great box.
And it's great for all players, because you mentioned again, I sort of hark back to what you said at the beginning, which was, your website is for all types of games. It's for all gamers that love racing games. And so the race creator can create super wacky combinations. It can do trucks with ramps and boost on San Francisco hills, but it can also do motorsport combinations. So again, choice, and it's for everyone. I really hope this is a game that everyone can just get in there and go, well, I'll tell you what would happen if we put, you're always saying you can beat me in this Ferrari versus this Porsche. Let's do it. So it's for everyone and choice. And we'll come back to that time and time again.
Could a player take these combinations or creations and race them online?
Yes.
The only mode that's not online is story, because we want the story to be a very crafted,
that makes sense.
Story-led experience. But anything in the career, so, technically, although we don't really have menus and sort of say it's a co-op career, you can play co-op career. In fact, you can play with, if you want to play through the career with Steve Brand, you can hop into his race as his teammate or as a rival, and race his entire career with him.
You better be quick. Better be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've only had an hour or so on it, so you definitely
that's good.
You've got the jump on me there.
You're already better than me. So.
But hopping, that's an interesting. I mean, if you allow me to quickly sort of elaborate
of course.
Add a bit more as well. So, obviously, multiplayer is a massively important part of this game for us, and hopping was one of the earliest sort of concepts that we wanted to bring to Grid Legends, which, as the name suggests, allows you to hop into the action as quickly as possible. It's all about sort of breaking down the barriers there. So if I was racing and you wanted to join me in a race, you could hop into that race. We may be in the pre-race screen, pre-race lobby. You could join that session there. But if we're racing, Grid allows you to actually hop in and take over an AI if there's one available there. And to go back to what sort of Chris was saying, as a host and as a player, I have 3 different settings that I can set the game to for hopping. So I could set it to free for all, which means, there's 22 cars on track, maybe only me when I start that session with, 21 AIs, but then you can just jump in and join me in the race.
Yeah.
I can set it to, we actually call it co-op mode, where only one person can join me and will take over my teammate, right? So there we have that element where we can drive, you can join me in my career and play through my career with me. And we have a team setting as well, which basically only allows 11 real drivers into the race, and they'll all be allocated, obviously, an AI teammate. So there's a lot of variety in what we do with that. And it's a really, really important feature for us.
Steve's got it absolutely right. I want you to sort of know where that's come from, because it's, hop in. We don't want a lot of lobbies waiting, because there's this key moment in a lobby where you're waiting. Do you have enough people? Do you launch it? And then you launch and that's it. You've got either 22 people in there or you've got 3 people in there, and that's the race you're going to have. So as Steve said, you open it up to everyone. It's great that you can build that grid of 22 players over the period of a bunch of races by just people coming in, hopping into the free spots, and then joining. So there's that real, time to play. That frustration is just gone, because you go to the menu, and the menu is also going to help you. It's going to tell you where there's live events, and or breadcrumb you to those, and then you just select it, jump in, and off you go. So it's that accessible to everyone. That choice: do I want to do my own race, or do I want to just hop in and have fun?
Is the hop-in multiplayer the only sort of online multiplayer in the game, or is there more traditional lobbies or private lobbies as well?
So hop-in is just one way you can get in, and we have, as Chris mentioned, we have a quick race button, which allows you to that will just find you a session. If it doesn't find you a session, it'll create you a session as host. And underneath that, there's some checks that the game will do. Do you have a friend online? Is there a nemesis online? And it will try and actually put you with that player to make it sort of more catered for you. But absolutely, yes, we have a session browser where you can go in and configure some settings if there's something specific you're looking for, be that a track or whatever. Or you can just basically find all the sessions that are live at that point and choose which one you want to join. So there's that traditional side to it as well. But the way we've built, we keep calling it a plobby. It's kind of what we came with.
Plobby.
It's a new one. Cross between a playlist and a lobby. So it's not like a traditional lobby, if you like. Okay. But there's an overlay that you can pull on, and you'll see who's in that session with you, and you'll see if they're your EA friends, and you can invite them from there and all this sort of stuff. But that kind of sits over, I guess the closest thing we have to a traditional lobby is our vehicle select screen with this plobby overlay, if you like.
I see.
And that's where players will generally be held before you go into a session. So the host can go off and configure. They could jump into the race creator, change the location or the car type, and then players, clients, if you like, they're still sitting on that screen waiting for the host to finish. And then as soon as the host picks which car type it is you're going to use, that screen transitions to show the correct car class. Everyone can pick the car, and away you go.
I'd be interested to see how that works. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, go. I'm too excited. So
that's all right. Oh, well, that'll be interesting to see, and hopefully we'll be able to try that in the new year, because the online is, it's one big element. Obviously, not as big as the story or the career. Perhaps depends on personal preference, but online is the key thing, and we'll see more of it hopefully soon.
Well, I can make online just that little bit bigger, because we haven't mentioned it yet. we're cross-platform. We're full cross-platform.
I was going to ask that.
So there you go. Sorry, I jumped in.
No, that's fine. Please explain cross-platform in what way? So if I've got a PC, it's PlayStation and Xbox, and everybody's playing together no matter the age of the console as well, right?
Yes.
Correct, yeah.
You've basically explained it.
Yeah, that wasn't really a question, was it? It was just a statement, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a statement and a correct statement.
Here's all the answers.
and the interview switches. So our next question for you is.
It's interesting because obviously we're deep in bug fixing and test mode with features, especially cross-platform being one of those. So we'll have sessions where I might be on the PS5 dev kit and somebody else is on Steam, or somebody else is on an older generation of one of the consoles. And it's really interesting to see the sort of load times. You might sit there in the lobby and you're pointing at this player that's on an older machine. So that's one of the challenges we have as developers, is to try and retain that sort of cohesive experience, while some people just are on older hardware, right? So it's going to take them longer to get into the experience. So yeah, it's challenging, but it's a great opportunity for the game.
And of course, the good news there is when they're hopping in, that doesn't affect the game in sessions. So if you do have a last gen Xbox and you're joining, you'll just join when you're ready to join, and then you'll hop into an AI car. There'll be a countdown, and then you take control after it sort of goes 3, 2, 1, go.
I mean, if you're in a group, if you're in a group and you want to wait for everybody you're on the pre-race screen, and as the host, you want to wait. And so everybody's in the race. You can obviously do that as well. You don't have to force
it. So everybody can wait, and then it's almost prioritized. But then if someone is on a Xbox One or PS4 or an older PC, for example, then they can just, the AI will take over whatever, and they can just hop in and
correct. Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool. That reminds me of when sometimes if you leave an F1 21 lobby and then you can join back in and take over your AI again. Actually, just randomly, do you speak to other Codemasters and EA teams in the development of this game?
We talk to, obviously we like to work together and see what technology each other has. So, Lee on the F1 team, a really good guy. You probably spoke to him already. You know how cool he is.
Yeah, there's another podcast people can listen to if they want to listen to Lee.
Yeah, Lee is, you want to speak to Lee. Lee is amazing. We did share some technology. We did talk, and, especially also around story, because they did story for a couple of seasons now. So a lot of chats with them about some of the pros, some of the pitfalls they hit. So there was a lot of discussion back and forth, just really with technology and around what they're doing.
In fact, one of the senior designers in our team was on the F1 project. Yep. He moved over to join Grid. So.
Interesting.
Paul Lovell, yeah.
Correct, yeah. So he's brought his knowledge of the F1 development as well with it. So it's a good sort of mixing pot, and we do share, we talk. Yeah, there's a lot of shared ideas and tech, etc.
There's a wealth of experience within the company, I'm sure. I'm aware that we're coming towards our end of our time, so I've got some rapid fire questions, if that's all right.
Okay.
What devices, first of all, is Grid Legends releasing on?
Okay, so I have the entire list here. I will read it correctly, so I get it all in there for you. So Grid Legends will be released on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series XS, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Steam, and Origin on February the 25th, 2022.
Quite a few platforms there. That's good.
Yes. And Dreamcast.
Dreamcast. Brilliant. I'm so hyped. Obviously not.
I'm going to leave the interview now.
Yeah. I might just quickly ask, and I wasn't going to mention this, but is there any plans for a Stadia release in the future? Or...
We'll have to wait and see on that one. Absolutely. Yeah. So not
Grid Legends. Grid Legends is not currently planned for a release on Stadia.
Thank you very much. Okay, so then if you're having an Xbox One or a PS4, is there an upgrade path for Xbox Series and PS5 versions?
Yeah, you buy it, you get it.
Brilliant. Happy days. All right. On the next, more console questions, I'm afraid. So on PS5 and Xbox Series X, what sort of resolutions and frame rates can the game output at?
I'll be running a solid 60, obviously at 4K. We do have a 120 hertz mode as well that we're testing. So we are looking to support that for sure.
Cool. Can I use a steering wheel?
Yes.
Brilliant. And is there a cockpit camera?
Yes.
And we have a cockpit camera without a wheel as well, if you prefer. So,
two cockpit cameras. Brilliant.
Double the choice.
Absolutely.
We've even got a dash. Actually, we've got 3 because we've got dash as well, dash cam as well. So there you go, and bonnet cam.
Oh well, that certainly appeases. I know Justin, who's on the team, who loves playing with a wheel, with a cockpit, regardless of the genre of racing game. So that's superb. So the next question I was going to ask it's 2 questions in one, but how many cars and how many tracks or routes, roughly?
We've got 130 plus big hand-picked vehicles at launch, including the Aston Martin Valkyrie. That's 9 car categories, 48 car classes, including rookie, semi-pro, and pro categories.
Plenty of choice then. But how about tracks or variations to go with them?
There are 143 routes in the game, spread over multiple different cities and GP circuits. So we have obviously London, Moscow, and our new fictional track, Strada Alpina, which is awesome as well. So variety and choice. Looking
forward to that one. Oh, and the Yokohama Docks has returned from the first race driver grid, right, which was a personal favourite of mine, so happy days.
That's still my favourite track, actually.
Awesome.
And if you drive around it, it's still got all of those lorries, all of the boxes. It's a very unique track, and it's one of my favourites for sure.
Cool. All right, well, just to finish off, I had a couple questions. First, we didn't really touch on it too much, but how has the handling evolved from the previous grid release in 2019? In my quick hands-on, it definitely felt different, a bit more solid, which I felt was a positive step forward. But has there been any significant work on this area?
Yeah, do you want to say that, Chris? Or
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that the team have looked at, and they've obviously rebuilt the handling from the ground up as well, is they looked at sort of curb handling, the way the cars handle around curbs. It's just one of the areas we knew we wanted to improve. And you'll find as well, there's a lot more character in the cars. So, if you're driving an AC Cobra, new car spoiler, which is obviously a very, very powerful rear-wheel drive car, you'll feel the difference there as you would in one of the front-wheel drive Minis or Clios or whatever. And so, the team have built the handling from the ground up. And what I would say is, for guys and girls watching this is, to get the true sort of experience as well and personality out of the cars, it does make sense to actually go in and look at the car handling mechanics that we've got and tweak those as well. With assists off, this game really shines as well. So hopefully there's something going on there.
Interesting.
So in addition to that, we also obviously they built new handling for the electric, the trucks, and the drift. And I don't know if you've tried the drift yet, but it's an amazing experience. They've done an amazing job on that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think the last time I played drift in a grid game was Grid Autosport, perhaps.
Yes.
And it was very enjoyable. So sign me up. I'll be there. And electric vehicles, looking forward to the future as well. And as an EV owner, that's pleasing to see. So let's not get into that because I'll be on it for a week. So
and we'll start talking about boost and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. That's for another time. So thank you very much for your time. I'd just like to ask you one final question, which is, what's it been like working with EA on this project? And did it start development before EA was involved?
So, look, we started way before EA came along, and they obviously had a look at it at the beginning of the year and loved it. They've been nothing but supportive, enthusiastic, and bringing to bear resources that we just didn't have access to before. A lot of user feedback tests, a lot of knowledge in stories and in other areas of the game. I did see a tweet the other day that said, they've done live action because EA's bought Coma, and we'd actually recorded it all about 4 months before they even came along. So that's a myth bust, if I can say that one. But
that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, it's been nothing but great working with them is the short version, and it's just allowed us to make a bigger game essentially.
Well, that's very pleasing to hear, and let's hope this relationship continues in that vein, because obviously we're very excited for Grid Legends, but also the future of other Codemasters games as well. Well, I think that just about wraps up everything that we know at this point about Grid Legends. So thank you very much, Chris.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you very much, Stephen.
No problem. Thank you for having us.
It's been an absolute pleasure. If you are listening or watching and you'd like to know more about the game, then visit Traxion.gg website. We'll have an in-depth article with the hands-on impressions. There's also going to be a video on our YouTube channel. please, if you want to know more about the game, follow us, Traction GG, on social media, and follow and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. But also, it goes without saying that Grid Legends is out on the 25th of February 2022 for PC, current PlayStations, and Xbox devices. That's it for now. Keep it pinned.